島、タイトが面白いよ。
Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoteric and our continuing series on the Taito Type X2 arcade platform, and we're launching right into it today with a game of Rastan. I know what you're thinking, why are we playing Rastan on the Type X2? It's an old game, and that is very true, but there's two very good reasons. One, it's part of the NesicaxLive platform, that means it runs on the X2, and secondarily, Rastan is the greatest of all time, and I will accept no arguments to the contrary. Before we get too far involved though, do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like, subscribe, and that notification bell definitely helps us out. If you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, we got a Patreon link down below as well, because Rastan is a member. But seriously, the reason I am covering this game on the X2 platform is twofold. One, the NesicaxLive service allowed you to play these older games. You can also play Puzzle Bobble on it as well. But the real reason I'm covering it is I have an incredible amount of nostalgia for Rastan. It is one of my favorite arcade games of all time, not just in the beat-em-up genre, but in the entirety of an arcade library. But right off the top, if you've never played Rastan before, I think you're going to absolutely understand what it is all about. It is a 2D hack-and-slash pseudo beat-em-up game. Rastan moves left, Rastan moves right, Rastan kills enemies, Rastan dies a lot. That is all there is to this game. But what I love about it so much is the memorization and timing, because so many things happen. Once you get good at this game, you can absolutely one credit clear it. I know because it's the first game I ever did a 1cc of. Now on the nostalgia front, there's a very particular reason I love this game. Back when I used to work in skiing, I lived in Vermont, and I used to go to Okemo a lot, a resort, before I started to travel for work. And after my friends and I would be done shooting for the day, we'd go to Village Pizza to get pizza because it was delicious and it was cheap. And there was a Rastan cabinet on the floor there. It's the first time I've ever played it in a cabinet, and I've never played it since. That's not because I haven't seen a cabinet for it. It's because I love that memory so much, I do not want to change it in a cabinet form. I'd play Rastan, I'd eat pizza, I'd go out drinking, and I'd have a grand old time. This game to me is one of my fondest arcade memories, and I've always wanted to buy a PCB for it, but they're relatively expensive. Now that I have it on the Type X2, I don't really feel the need to go buy a PCB because it functions on this platform. So Rastan in and of itself is part of my collection finally, and I am so very glad for that. Now I'm not going to lie, this game can be cheap as hell. You'll see there that wall pushes you out. Rastan is a game of pure memorization. Enemies have different patterns. You can move left and right to get them to despawn off screen, and you'll see there those bats are just not in the right spot. You need to kind of wiggle around and move them. This is the type of game, the more you play it, the better you get at it, because pushing the button to kill enemies is quite simple. You've got one button, swing your weapon, you're good to go. Bosses can be a whole nother thing. Each one has a pattern, but what pattern you get can be 100% controlled and dictated by how you move your character around. You'll see there I take a relatively quick death because I didn't have the pattern I was looking for. I come down here and he's got that trident, which has so much more reach. And you just basically need to read the patterns. If you get a good pattern, you're going to be able to beat this boss relatively quickly, because you'll see here I can poke at him, but if he moves back, you don't want that. You moving back is going to cause him to use that trident to attack you. Here's how it gets done. You need to get close enough to attack, but not so close that he's going to want to use that trident. If you get this guy to jump up to the top, for some reason if you back up and move towards him, he's just going to wave that trident around in the air like he still thinks he's below you. Tank a few hits, and you have a victory. And I love Rastan for this, because even though it was like 2006 when I last played this game, I 100% remember all of that. But what sticks in my head the most about Rastan is the soundtrack. It is iconic. It sounds like it's ripped from a Conan the Barbarian movie, because honestly Rastan's just a rip-off of that. So enjoy for 45 seconds and I'll be right back. That song is just branded into my brain in the same place that the rest of the best video game music of all time is. I can just hear it coming out of those tinny mono speakers at Village Pizza in Ludlow, Vermont. It's just one of those tracks that I love. You'll see there that there's some weird screen transition stuff going around, and I think that's because this must just be using obviously emulation. It's not like Taito remade Rastan for the X2 Nesica platform. It may very well be using an implementation of MAME for all I know. What I will say is, my board for some reason launches this game in 16:9, but there is a dip switch on the X2 where you can toggle it to go down to 480p, and that seems to fix it entirely. So it seems like this was on test location in Japan. I found one instance of it being written about online, but after that maybe it just didn't go too far. So maybe it was always intended on going into an older style 4x3 cabinet. I'm not sure, but it doesn't really put any art to the left and the right, so who knows what's going on there. But you'll see here, like I said earlier, pacing is the name of the game. Sometimes you need to wait and sometimes you need to move forward. If you wait in the wrong spot, you are going to get brigaded by enemies, but if you run ahead, some of them will actually despawn, and as you roll down here, you have to make that jump before you fall into the fire pit because it is instant death. And that's what I love so much about Rastan. It is so memorization based. Even though the enemies will be in different places, once you learn how to move and manipulate them, the game will become easier for you. And once you understand how to manipulate all of those characters, you can basically almost get through this game without taking any damage whatsoever. Because you'll see here instantaneously, I remembered this boss's pattern about the jumping. If you just hit her and avoid some of those fireballs, she will continue to hop. You can make her hop backwards or you can make her hop over you. But as long as you stay the right distance away, there's no way that she can hit you. You just need to worry about the fireballs from above, and I absolutely love that. And you will see that for the time and age, it does have a little bit of parallax scrolling. There is one background layer and one foreground layer, and as we get into later stages, this game becomes quite difficult. It's been some time since I played Rastan just because I've played it so many times before, but when I wanted to do the X2 series, I had to talk about this game because it is just one of those that I so fondly remember. It's an older style of hack and slash game for sure. The enemies do weird things, the way they spawn in is strange. This was an 80s game, not a 90s game, so you need to remember things were different back then. But I love everything about it. The art style, the graphics, these different enemy characters. Here we have these, well, look like almost minotaurs punching at us. You just need to worry about the jumping because Rastan does a strange thing. There's just a jump button, but if you hold the arcade stick up or up and to the left or right, you're going to be able to jump higher in that direction. It's a really interesting way to do things, and you will see there as well that you do have a downward dive because sometimes you need to jump where enemies are and you need to dive down with that sword or whatever weapon you have pointing down. And if there's any bats above you, hold up and push the attack button and you will attack directly up. There's actually a lot of mechanics in a game, even though it is so simple in the movement tech. But you'll see here, we just need to basically kite these skeletons further back. Poke them, they're going to move backwards. It basically becomes free. You'll see there that I did take a bad jump and I did get hit, but otherwise, once you understand what each enemy does and once you understand the timings, you'll be fine. At this fireball section, just go ahead and push left to slow yourself down until you can make that jump. Sure, you might get hit now and then, but you can tank a lot of it. The hardest part of this game is definitely going to be these ropes because you need to time them up perfectly, but the great thing is there is no timer in Rastan, so you can take as much time as you want. Jump over with the rope, slash down, attack that enemy, and you are good to go. And for a game from the 80s, it just looks spectacular. I love Sword and Sandals epics. I've always loved the Conan the Barbarian movie, so Rastan has everything that would make it be one of my favorite games of all time. But I think if you've never played it, you will enjoy it too. It's definitely not a golden axe, so it only involves one plane, but there is so much fun to be had here, and once you get good at it, the game is not long whatsoever. But I think this is one of Taito's best arcade games in the 2D space that they have ever made, and I have just such incredible memories of this game because this is one of the last video games I played from between 2005 to 2010 because I got extremely busy. I know I don't talk about myself on the channel that much, but I basically traveled full-time for 5 years working in sports. I've been a coach at the X Games and many other weird things like that. So for some strange reason I took a 5-year break from gaming because I didn't have time to play, and Rastan was the last game I played before that happened. And for all those reasons and more, I absolutely had to put an old 80s Taito 2D game on the X2 series because it's on NesicaxLive, and there's a reason for that. People love Rastan. It is just legit one of the best games of all time in my opinion. But leave me a comment down below and tell me I'm wrong, as you probably think something different is the best. Short of that, I'll be back next week with another episode in the X2 series. I'll have videos through a week as well. But honestly, if you've never played Rastan, you are missing out. See you guys next time. Bye bye.